Hi everyone, my name is Beth Twist, and this following FlossTube video was recorded on May 8th, a long time ago, and it sat on my computer because I was unsure about whether I should publish it or not. Basically, the day I videoed, I was on my back porch avoiding the noise in the house, and it was windy. Breezy, windy, and there's a lot of wind noise in the video. Maybe a lot is the wrong word, but there are a couple times where the wind noise is loud enough that you can't hear what I'm saying. And I just have not found the time to re-record, and there's a lot of good information. I talk about past releases and upcoming releases and what I've been up to, and there's a couple of whips and that sort of thing. And now the wind is blowing again, and I'm afraid that it's going to be loud. I don't know where the microphone is on my phone. Maybe that's the microphone. Watch if you want, or skip to the end and see some videos from our recent vacation, and there's a little clip of my bees and a few other things around the place. The vacation clips also have wind because we were on the Caribbean Sea. So anyway, that's my little warning to you. Proceed with caution. Hey everybody! It has been such a long time since I popped on here. I don't know why is it such a production every time to try to get a video done. There's either, you know, kids in the house doing schoolwork, and so I don't want to be a distraction to them, or my husband's working from home and conference calling, so I don't want to be a distraction to him, and the weather's bad outside, and I'm busy filling orders or getting ready to go on a trip like the one I just got back from. It's just everything has, so many things have stopped me from just sitting down and talking to you. I am going to show you a couple of new things, some sort of re-releases, talk about the workshop that I just taught down in Dallas. I'm going to show you some stitching that I did on vacation, not my own designs for once. And I might pause and go blow my nose a few times because I brought a cold home from Dallas with me. First, I'm going to show you this. Look at this great mug. So on Wednesday nights, my son goes to youth group. Oh, and check out the other side. Isn't that perfect? On Wednesday nights, while my son's at youth group, my daughter and I have this tradition for the last couple years of going to a coffee shop, and I grade her math, and we just have girl time, and it's, also math grading time, but we talk and catch up. And we walked into our favorite local coffee shop last night, and they had this new display, and these mugs were there, and she's like, they just came in today, and I'm like, I'm buying one right now. It's like $9, and it's the most perfect beekeeper mug I think I've seen in a long time. I have a few. I have a mug problem, and I have a bee mug problem, and it's okay. It's okay. My mugs make me happy. I choose my mugs every morning based on my mood and how I feel about the day, and there's always one of my mugs that just speaks to me on any given day. I have some that are favorites, some that are vacation memories. I tend to only keep maybe 30 mugs. I don't know, I've never counted. But I have another cupboard where the ones that I'm not quite ready to let go of, but I don't really use on a regular basis, that's where they go. Just in case I have like a whole bunch of friends over and we're all drinking coffee. Which, by the way, has never happened. That's sad. Maybe I'm keeping them so that someday when I'm rich and I can convert my barn into little stitching retreats, and you all come visit me in groups of like 12, like maybe once a month I have a group of 12, and then we can drink out of my excess coffee mugs and we can stitch together. Doesn't that sound amazing? Okay, I'm gonna go start a GoFundMe right now. Just kidding. It is a dream of mine, but I don't know if it'll ever come to fruition. I think my barn is gonna fall down before I have a chance to turn it into something amazing. We'll see. Anyway, let me pull out my list before it blows away of things that I'm going to talk about today. Oh, there it goes. First, back to my little favorite coffee shop. So, this wind is causing problems, and I'm sorry that my paper bag is probably really loud to you guys. I'm going to move it. Okay, I'm back. Anyway, our favorite barista, we've talked off and on, just in short little conversations for the last several months. And so she knows about the school that the kids go to. And by the way, hi, welcome to my FlossTube channel. My name is Beth Twist, and I am a cross-stitch designer, and Heartstring Samplery is my design business name. And if you're new here, I'm glad you've stopped by, and you may be surprised at how unorganized I am today. This is not normal. It's a little bit normal. If you're coming back, thank you, because I know I'm not very consistent with my videos, and I don't know if I'm entertaining or not, so I'm just glad that I have a few of you who stick around with me. Anyway, back to the coffee shop. She says, this is Teacher Appreciation Week, and I always think of you as a teacher because you homeschool your kids. Well, technically, I'm a learning coach because I don't actually teach my kids anything. I facilitate the classes that their charter school organizes, but they do schoolwork 3 days a week from home. And I sort of am my daughter's teacher. I've chosen curriculums that are pretty self-managing, so in that I don't have to actually teach the subject. Her math, for example, has a video curriculum lecture series that goes with it, so she watches a man teach her the new math assignment on a video, and then she goes and works on her workbook. I'm just there to make sure that if she's not getting it, there's another person that can help her along. My son's curriculum is all completely online now. He's a 7th grader this year. So anyway, I'm not really a homeschool mom. I'm kind of a half homeschool mom. So she comes over and she says, I just think of you as a teacher, and so I know you're a beekeeper, and so I thought I would give you this. And look what, she just gave it to me out of the goodness of her own little heart. Isn't that sweet? It says Save the Bees. It has a little bee on it. And it was just out of the connection that we made with each other, and she just thought it was really nice. Little kindnesses. She didn't even have to bring me this. She could have just said, it's Teacher Appreciation Week, and I see what you're doing for your daughter, and I appreciate you. That would have sent me over the moon, but then she brought me a little present. Just reminded me that I need to, when I have those thoughts in my head about people in my community, I need to just speak out and say it, because I could totally make somebody's day. Okay, so, what are we going to talk about? Well, it feels like a million years ago now, but my family did go to Mexico Mexico for spring break. My husband, as long as I've known him, we'll be married 20 years in September. He's always talked about going to Mexico and seeing the Mayan ruins down there. Primarily in the Yucatan Peninsula is the area that, for whatever reason, he's very fascinated with. So we finally did it. 20 years of knowing this man. We booked the vacation ourselves. We used the internet as a resource. We stayed at a little resort in Tulum, Mexico, which is about an hour and a half drive south from Cancun. So we flew into Cancun, rented a car. Yes, we rented a car in Mexico. Drove an hour and a half south to this little resort. All of the reviews on TripAdvisor were good for the most part. There were some disgruntled Americans, but come on, let's be real. There's a lot of disgruntled Americans. So I read their reviews with a grain of salt, and I'm glad I did, because we pulled up and this resort was so much prettier than it showed in the pictures, and very clean and comfortable, and it's right on the Caribbean Sea. And it's outside of town, and it's a smaller resort, so there weren't like masses of people everywhere. The thing that the people complained about was there seemed to be a lot of Italians there. I don't see any reason to complain about Italians personally. I've met a few in my life and they were lovely people, so I was, thought that was kind of an odd complaint. But honest and true, every other guest besides our family of 4, one single guy that was there, and this other woman that apparently had a few other family members with her, we were the only Americans. There was nobody from the Middle East. There was nobody from Asia. There was no one from Australia. No one from Europe except Italy. Everybody. So it's a small resort. So there were maybe, I don't know, several hundred guests. We're not talking in the thousands here. Like, I would guess 300 to 500. All Italians. And so we're walking down the path, and instead of saying hola, as you do when you're in a country, you usually say hello in whatever the language is. Well, we're in Mexico, so we thought we'd be saying hola and gracias and como está and that sort of thing. No, it was ciao and grazie. It was like visiting 2 countries at the same time in a really delightful way. We thought it was fantastic. So the buffet in the for the resort for most of our meals was, just kind of a serve yourself buffet. But they had one little section where they were cooking foods, from fresh for you right there. And it was usually like omelets for breakfast or pancakes, tacos at lunchtime and dinner. But there was always at lunch and dinner a pasta selection. And it was the best pasta I have ever eaten in my life. It was like what I imagine eating pasta in Italy would be like. And the man who was the pasta chef was very definitely Italian, spoke very little English, and what he did was just lovingly spoken in the accents of Italy. And so most of the upper management seemed to be Italian. The entertainment staff was, lovely young people, energetic, like I imagine they usually are. And it was about half Italians and half native to the area, Mayan or Mexican. And then all of the groundskeepers and housekeeping, they all seemed to be local natives. And the ones that cleared our tables in the buffet. And they were all just so warm and friendly, and it was fun to hear a mix of Italian and Spanish, and highly, highly recommend it. I'm not going to put you know, links to this because it doesn't really have to do with cross stitch, but please, by all means, if you're interested in a vacation down to Mexico on the Caribbean side to see maybe some Mayan ruins, ask and I will give you all of the details of where we went and the resort. And we hired a tour guide for our one day that we went and saw Chichen Itza and Coba, which are two large pyramids, Mayan pyramids. Chichen Itza, very well known, very well kept up. Coba is a little bit more like visiting an archaeological site where it has not been restored and it's tumbled down, but you can still climb the pyramid there. And it's one of the, I think it's like the 4th tallest in the Yucatan Peninsula, or the top, I don't know. It's up there. And I climbed to the top of it, and I honestly thought I was going to die on the way down. I heard a woman behind me slip, and these stairs are, you know, they're tall and they're narrow, and it's old limestone and very solid and secure, but, you know, broken up. And so you're climbing and then there's a missing step, and so you have to get over and climb. And going up, it's like, you know, no big deal. You don't realize how high up you are. And then you turn around and it's like, holy cow, the ground is really far down there. It was amazing. It was beautiful. You get up and you're above the jungle and you're looking out and you can see the tops of a few other pyramids sticking out from the trees. And it just felt like an accomplishment, you know, that I made it up to the top. And then coming down, they have this big fat guide rope that's anchored in down the center. But the stairs on either side of that guide rope are, the limestone has worn slick from people climbing. And I was like, I don't know. And there, people were going down on their rear ends. Excuse me. Combination of cold and seasonal allergies, and I'm getting froggy. They were sliding down on their rear ends, kind of in this train going down, and I was like, yeah, I don't really want to do that. And so I moved over to the side where the steps were not slippery, and I just was slowly, you know, step down. I'm just taking my time because they, like I said, they're deep steps. And I heard this woman behind me. I heard a man saying, you know, that I'm in the wrong place. I'm afraid of heights. I don't know what I'm doing up here. And he's kind of like, I could hear the panic in his voice. And then I hear a woman's voice saying, you know, just take one step at a time, you'll be fine. And then I hear her foot slip, and they're like just a couple steps behind me. And my life flashed before my eyes because I'm imagining him panicking, her slipping, and the two of them coming down and taking me out. And we were still 2/3 of the way up. I mean, you could easily, the reason people don't climb at Chichen Itza anymore is because a tourist fell to her death there. What am I doing? I don't know. I don't know what I was doing. Can you imagine my children watching me fall? It's probably stupid to do that, but I probably would do it. Again, not a second time, but I'm glad I did. Anyway, I moved over out of their trajectory and continued on my way down and just made sure there was no one behind me the whole rest of the way down, because nobody wants that to happen. Anyway, I have a few video clips that I'll probably tack on at the end of this video of just the lovely Caribbean Sea and the resort, and maybe some pictures too. It was a fantastic vacation. We weren't gone nearly long enough. My husband doesn't like to be gone long, so we had a travel day on either end and then 4 days there. So 6 days total. 4 days was really probably not enough. It wasn't enough. I could have stayed definitely a few more days, but he was getting antsy. It was good for him. Maybe we'll go back again sometime. So that, I'll probably put some videos at the end, just if you want to stick around and watch. I wanted to give you a charity chart update. If you've been around watching my videos for a while, you could go back, or if you have not, you go back to January and you could see me present. I did 4 charts, and it's all black lettering and they're scripture verses, and each one, they're exclusively sold through my Etsy shop because they each benefit a charity. And if I sell them wholesale or sell them to my distributors, it waters down the amount I can get to donate to these charities too much. So it's not me trying to hog the proceeds, it's me wanting to give as much as possible to my 4 chosen charities. So there are 4 different ones. The Justice Chart benefits A21, which is an anti-slavery organization. The Faith Chart benefits Compassion International, which is child sponsorship. The Hope Chart benefits Preemptive Love, which they're kind of on the ground in the Middle East primarily, but also domestically in the United States, helping either with disaster relief or in war zones. And then the Love Chart benefits Cure International, which is a medical organization that goes into third world countries and basically takes these kids who have cleft palate or encephalitis, diseases that are treatable and operable, I don't know what the right word is. They can be fixed, but these kids, if they don't have access to medical, these kids live lives where they're shut away in closets because they don't have the same view of deformities there. They basically shun the whole family if a child is born with deformities. So anyway, I don't need to talk anymore about it because I have a whole video about that. I am excited about all 4 of these charities, love what they do, and was excited when I had the idea to do something to help them, even if it's just a little bit. And you guys have been so supportive and understanding with the fact that they're only available through me, and you've come to me and you have bought them. And as of the end of April, I've been able to donate a grand total to all 4 charities of $1,720. Isn't that great? Of course, the first month, the donation amount was much larger per month, and the sales of the charts have really tapered off, but I'm still selling a few a month of each one, and so I'll just keep passing that money along to these charities, and every little bit makes a difference in the lives of some people who really need help. So the breakdown, just over $400 total has gone to A21, almost $350 to Compassion International, just over $400 to Preemptive Love, and almost $600 to Cure. And I just feel I'm super happy with those amounts, and I hope that my project has resonated with you. I know a few people have reached out to me and said, I'm planning to sponsor a child, or I'm going to start donating to this charity on my own, just because you've exposed me to it and I like what they do. And that's all I wanted. I wanted to be able to give them more than I personally give from my monthly budget. These are all charities that I support monthly. It's not a large amount monthly, it's a little bit, but it's kind of that proverbial, the sand dollar, or what's the story of the boy on the beach and there's starfish, and he's throwing them back in one at a time, but there are thousands of starfish on the beach, and somebody says, why do you bother? You can't save them all. And as he throws one in, he says, well, I just saved that one. So every little bit makes a difference. 5, 10, 15, however much you can give a month makes a difference to those people. So I do my part monthly, and I'm super excited to have been able to give them some larger amounts because of you. I think that probably, I don't know when, but I'd like to do another round of these charts with another, they'll probably benefit the same charities, but it'll be another layer of these scripture charts that people seem to like. I've seen people stitching them on social media, so I don't know. It's fun, and thank you. I'm super thankful that we've been able to do this together. So I want to show you what I stitched on vacation. The first that I finished the stitching on, but it's not FFO'd, is Stacy Nash's Rose Garden basket. This was a market release a couple years ago. I want to say maybe 2017, that I bought from her at market, and it was my car project for a long time, and I set it aside for a while. I stitch in hand and I use the sewing method, and the linen provided is a bit on the stiff side, and so it was not delightful to stitch in hand with. I think it's probably fantastic if you stitch it with a hoop, because it's nice and stiff and you can get some good tension. But I got my panels finished. So there's a couple of flower baskets that are a little different from each other. Got those done. I got the house with the horse finished. And then this little one with a little bouquet, and it's got a kitty and a dog and my initials. 2017, yeah, this was the first panel I did, so it's taken me 2 years to get these tiny little things done. So next step will be the finishing, and the kit came with everything I needed to finish it, so that will happen at some point. I do need to have a finishing day really soon, because I've got some Heartstring designs coming out that need some attention. So maybe I'll throw that one into the mix and get it done. Completely finished, or completely stitched from start to finish on my vacation, on the flight home, by the way. Started this and finished it on the flight home. Was this cutie. Yes, I stitched on Ada. Have not done that in probably 30 years. And it's all stitched with DMC. All provided in the kit. And the company is local. I spotted this at the winter craft fair that I go to every year. It's called Crafty Wonderland in Portland. And it's the best of all the... It's not your typical church craft show. This is like top of the line, trendy, crafty Portland vibes throughout the whole thing, and my BFF and I go every year and love it. So I saw this there and I was like, ooh, cross stitch at the trendy craft show. How exciting is that? I should go check it out. And it's called, company is called Junebug and Darlin. This is what their packaging looked like. This was called the Home Sweet Home Foyer version. They had another version. Cross stitch kit. They have a website, junebuganddarlin.com. If I remember, I'll put the address down below. And it came with everything I needed to stitch it, and then it had this wool felt to back it. So when I came home, first day I got home, I just sealed it in, and I have an FFO. That was probably the fastest FFO in the history of my life, because my projects tend to be much more involved than that. So are you proud of me? I had a whip and an FFO to show you that's not my own. Yay! Okay. What is in here? So maybe I'll save that. Let me turn things around, because that's the chart showing. I was inspired apparently on my trip. I will stitch it at the park. I will stitch it in the dark. I will stitch it by the sea. I will stitch it in a tree. I will stitch it where'er I go. I will stitch in rain or snow. My aspirations of being Dr. Seuss, apparently. I don't remember writing that down. It was on the back of my chart. I tend to do that. I'll get an idea and I'll either throw it into my phone in my task list, or I will write it on a random, whatever's closest to me, often in a pattern or an envelope from the post office, and then it goes somewhere, and eventually I come across and I'm like, oh hey, that was a great idea. And then I try to work them into a design at some point. I don't think I'll put that one in a design. It's not very samplery. Okay, and I also wanted to show you my needle nannies. If you follow me on social media, you've seen these. I have now 5, 10, 15, 23 different needle nannies. These are made by Zappy Dots. And if you are a needle nanny user, these are the best. They are so strong. They are so strong that I had them sitting under my notepad, cardboard, layers of paper, my list, and a pattern cover I'm going to show you in a minute. Okay, I had them sitting on top of like that, and then I had my little tag that I showed you earlier, and I set it on top. The magnets stick through that many layers. So anyway, if you've never tried a needle nanny from Zappy Dots, they're super strong, not to be put near your pacemaker if you have a pacemaker. Lovely little things, well constructed, and they've got multiple designers that have that are working with them with their designs. So you could go to their website and find, I know Blackbird Designs, I think Plum Street. I'm not going to list them all because there's a whole bunch of them. And Heartstring Samplery. Yee. So those can be found at many of your local needlework shops. I have them listed in my Etsy shop for sale. And that's all. Just wanted to show you. And I was proud of my little board. So when I order them, they come in a little plastic box, clear plastic box, and they're stuck on a piece of metal. Because if you just throw them into a package, they would all stick together and be a big mess. So that's how they mail them to me when I order quantities. So I took one of the metal pieces and I wrapped a piece of linen around it, and I didn't even like lace it or sew it on there. I just stuck another metal piece on the back because the magnets hold it all together. And that's my little display board. I was proud of myself for that one. All right. So, excuse me again. Next. Well, I guess I'm going to talk about what I've been up to. I had just a minute. Hold, please. Last month's release was Philip Foster Farm. Didn't put a video up before I released it, so I'm going to talk about it now. This was a club design for Country Sampler in Spring Green last year, and this is a house that is just a few miles down the road from me, and it's at a place called the Philip Foster Farm. House was built in 1847 in Eagle Creek, Oregon, and it was one of the final stopovers at the end of the Oregon Trail. And it is now a museum where they do a lot of school field trips where they demonstrate blacksmithing and candle making and all kinds of pioneering kinds of things. They have one activity where the kids are challenged to choose what they're going to load into their wagon and take on their trip with them. And they have like square footage, and they have to calculate like what's going to fit and what they have to leave behind, which I think is a really clever way of getting kids to think about what these people actually gave up to come west. Anyway, there's an old growth, I do mean old growth, lilac tree in front of the house that is massive. It is amazing. And Philip Foster's wife brought it as a cutting from back east. And they didn't come on the Oregon Trail, they sailed down around the Cape and then back up the other side. They stayed over in what was then called the Sandwich Islands, which is Hawaii, for like 6 months. And then when they finally settled in Eagle Creek, she finally got to plant her lilac and then moved it a few times as they had like a temporary home. I'm not sure, I don't remember the whole reason why, but it moved a few times and then was finally planted in front of the house when the house was built, and it's still alive today. And people buy cuttings off of it, and so this mother lilac tree has babies all over the area, and lilacs being one of my favorites, I just am fascinated with the story of this tree. So the cool thing about bringing this story full circle is that today is May 8th. So in 10 days they're going to have a festival, and it's in celebration of this lilac tree. And they are going to have my model there in their little store, and I'm going to start donating charts to their shop so they can, when tourists come in or groups, if they want, they could buy a cross-stitch pattern. And I'll probably provide a small amount of kits to them too. Some people want a whole kit. I don't usually do kits, but for them I will. So anyway, that's exciting. This month I am getting ready to release Housewife. That was a Ladies Prim Society club piece from last spring. Actually, maybe February? Yeah, February of 2018. I released Where Liberty Dwells through the Ladies Prim Society Club. And it is now available to all of you through my Etsy, through your local needlework shop. It's a general release now. And I don't have the model to show you because it was a gift for a friend, but I will show you Once Upon a Summer is finished exactly the same way as Where Liberty Dwells. So there's a little kind of envelope side over here, and then on the back, excuse my label, there's a pocket, a patch for pins, and another pocket. You can put quartz, you can put scissors, and then it basically just, you can either fold it and tie it, or you can roll it. So same construction, but the design is a patriotic, American patriotic shield and bouquet. And it was made on, I used R&R 36 count old mill Java for the linen, which is one of my favorite linens. I love R&R's 36 and 40 counts particularly. The threads are all weeks, and then I just use cotton fabrics, different quilting cottons for the interior, and this is Hug Snug seam binding. Lady Dot also has some ribbon that would be nice for finishing if you want to get a little bit fancy. So that's my release for May, and I've got some other fun stuff coming up. So I don't know if you are familiar with the Dying to Stitch shop over in Virginia Beach, but they've got a few really great clubs, and they just kind of did a reshuffle, some new clubs this year, and they graciously invited me to stick around, and I said yes please. And I am not in the Ladies Prim Society Club with Blackbird Designs anymore. That was such an honor to design with those ladies and be alongside them in that club. they've decided to take a step back from designing for clubs, and so I am now partnered with Paulette Stewart of Plum Street Samplers, and our club is called the Kindred Spirits Club. And her design already came out, fantastic brick house with topiaries, and I've seen a lot of you stitching it. And my design is next, and I believe it'll be shipping out. I don't know if they're going to be shipping out in May or if it'll be beginning of June, but it's coming soon. This club is supposed to be patriotic in nature, American patriotic. I'm sorry to my international customers. That was our request, and they have enough people that requested patriotic that that's what they decided to do with this club. I don't know if that will continue next year or if it'll be a different theme, but for this year it's American patriotic. And then Paulette and I decided it would be fun to choose one other thing that we have in common with our designs. And when mine comes out, you'll see what that thing is. So, although I'm not technically a member of the club, Mama Joan has some Kindred Spirits bags that she's making for club members, and she let me get one. It counts, right? I designed for the club. It's great. It's a nice small size, perfect for a little project. So there you can see my colors and the linen for my design, but you don't get to see what the design looks like. I will let the Dying to Stitch ladies introduce it, but I think you're gonna like it. So I just got back from Dallas. The Tudor Rose Sampler Guild invited me to come down and teach a workshop for them, and we did double workshop. I figured if I was going down, what if we do twice the amount of projects for my trip? So I gave them some options, and they chose my Pins and Orts design. If you've been around, you know that I taught this at Salty Yarns last fall, so it's not a brand new to the Tudor Rose Sampler Guild. It was not new this month. What was new, sort of, to them was that I couldn't get the same little tins that I used for Salty Yarns. Excuse me while I look down. So for Salty Yarns, I had some tins that were like the size of a soup can, and they have this lovely embossed pattern on them that I got at Hobby Lobby, and they were out of stock when I was putting these kits together. So instead I found these little tins. Most of them have handles. I took one without handles because they fell off in transit. Isn't that cute? It looks like a little farm galvanized feed bucket. Put a little label on the bottom for them. And so what I taught in the class was how to make this little domed top. It's a pincushion top. And then how to finish a strawberry and the strawberry matches. And yes, do not despair. This project will eventually, this pattern will eventually be available for sale. It is not available yet. My agreement when I teach classes, retreats, workshops is that the pattern that I take is going to be exclusive for a while. So the exclusive period from Salty Yarns is over in September, but then I taught this in May. So I'm not sure when I'm going to release it. It will be coming up within the next, I would say, 10 months or so, because the ladies at the guild said, you don't have to keep it exclusive for that long. We don't expect you to do that. I said, well, that's nice of you, but it has to fit into my schedule where it makes sense for me. So yes, it will come out. You will have a chance to make one of these little pins and ords for yourself eventually, just not quite yet. I will never have a completely exclusive pattern. At the most, I would maybe change a pattern a little bit when I re-release it. I did that with my F is for Friend design. It originally was for the Silver Needle for their Circle of Friends Club. And when I re-released it for you all earlier this year, it was similar but not quite the same. And so I won't always rework them. Actually, probably mostly what I will do 99% of the time is it will be the same thing. It's just that the exclusive period is usually 1 year. I think the longest is typically 18 months. Like if the rotation of a club is longer, then I will wait that length before I release it. Just so you know. Some designers keep things completely exclusive and will never release it again. And I understand why they do that. It's just probably not something that I will do because I like letting you all have access eventually. So the other project I taught, and this is going to crinkle, sorry, was the Mary Pearson sampler. And this is a project that has been a few years in the making. My local museum found me and contacted me and said, we have a sampler that has been donated to us that's in really bad shape. And we would like someone to reproduce it so we can have a copy to display. Would you be interested? And I was like, sure, let me come look at it. And so I kind of fell in love with it and have picked out a way at it for several years. 4 years, I think, at least, maybe 5. I need to look back at my notes. We're still in the midst of trying to figure out Mary Pearson's story. There's not a date on here. We know the family that donated it, and we can find some Pearsons in their family tree, but not a Mary Pearson. And so we don't know if Mary was a nickname or if she's somebody in the family that we just haven't been able to find yet. So we're still working on that. It's got some funky spots in it where the stitches don't line up right, and because I was reproducing it for a museum, I did not take liberties and make it easier to chart and then therefore stitch. I chose to chart it as best as I could exactly how Mary stitched hers, and it makes for a more complicated chart to read. So most of my charts are good for anybody. Any beginner can stitch my charts. This is definitely a more advanced chart. This is for somebody who has stitched samplers, who understands the nature of recreating a sampler as the original schoolgirl did it. There are some places where she did things with thread that I couldn't quite identify how she did it, so in my directions I try to explain as best as possible. This sampler pattern, nice little bracelet picked up, and it's snowing pink petals in front of me. We've got these big old cherry trees that are just loaded and they're invisible as well in my hair right now. I wish I could show you, but my camera is fixed. It's beautiful. Anyway, I was not able to take the samplers, my reproduction or the antique, to the workshop. So instead, I took some good photographs, and I had them printed up at the print shop where I usually get my covers done. So here is, and I hang on tight so they don't blow away. Here's the antique sampler. You can see there's an Adam and Eve at the top, a verse. You can see it's torn. There's a big tear in the antique right there, and that color ghosting, somebody washed it, and this is why it's in such bad shape. There's blue bled out all over the place. These are supposed to be white sheep, and a dog and white sheep over here, and it actually doesn't show up as much in this picture as it does in real life. It's really, it's sad. I still think it's a beautiful sampler with all of its damage. Sometimes I think the damage makes them prettier. But that's the antique. And I also took pictures and had the back printed because I want you to see this. Okay, we are all hard on ourselves. If our back of our project doesn't look amazing, we don't want our threads to carry, and there's all these rules, right? Check this out. You see that? Look at her tails. She's got crazy long tails. You can see them through on the front. And this, I mean, it's just a rat's nest on the back. And I showed that to the Sampler Guild this last weekend, and I said, you don't have to follow the rules. These samplers that we admire and we copy and so many of our designs are inspired by, they were made by little girls. Be realistic. If you're not enjoying it because you're trying to be so perfect with your back and your front, then is it even worth it? This is supposed to be a craft that we do for delight and enjoyment and relaxation. So go easy on yourself. I give you permission. So here's a picture of my reproduction. I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. My colors I chose are based on the back side of the sampler instead of the front. I mean, check out his, I don't know, can you see that? Purple jacket and yellow pants. Yep. This bright fuchsia butterfly and bird. I did a few close-ups so you can see the rat's nest on the back a little bit better. It was fun passing these around and letting the guild members really look at it. The shepherdess has this window pane pattern in her dress. You can see it better on my reproduction. Isn't that cool? It's a little bit hard to figure out how they did that, but I'm happy with how my reproduction turned out. Anyway, oh, and the snake. It's coiled embroidery floss, tacked down. Anyway, it's been a labor of love, and I think that now that I'm back from my trip, I took the reproduction and the antique to the museum before I left for Dallas, and they were supposed to be getting the reproduction framed, and then which usually I think takes a couple weeks probably. And the plan is to sort of have a little party when they unveil it, and they want me to come in, and they're going to carry the patterns and a few kits in their gift shop, and they want to do an article in the local newspaper, which is not a big deal. It's a really small newspaper, but they're like, we want you to come in and get your picture, and I'm like, all right, I'll do it. So I donated my time and materials, and I'm gonna donate charts to the museum for them to sell. The kits I'll probably charge them for because that's a much higher expense. And so for a period of time, you're only going to be able to get it through the museum, and I need to talk to them about whether or not they want to sell to out-of-town customers, meaning put them in the mail. I don't know. They might not want to deal with that. So I'll just ask you to be patient. If you're interested in this sampler, I will release it to the public. It will probably be after market next year, though, because I have a really tight schedule. I have marked out on the calendar all of my releases up until Nashville, and I have to stick with it for a very big reason. So how's that for a segue? In 2014, when I was approaching my 100th distributed design, I'm not counting clubs and freebies, I'm counting designs available to everyone through the distributor. I was approaching 100, and I decided I wanted to do something big. And that's where His Eye is on the Sparrow came from, was that idea that I wanted to stitch something big for myself to commemorate 100 designs. I had no idea that you all would like that design as much as you have. I can't believe how many of you are just now stitching it. There's a few of you that are stitching it for Monogamania instead of Stitchmania. And I'm just so thankful that you all like that design as much as I do. It is hanging in my family room, and I love it. So we are now, it took me 6 years to reach 100, and true to form, it is now approaching 6 years later, and guess what? I am approaching 200 distributed designs. So what do you think a good follow-up would be? If I did a big one for 100, don't you think I should do another big one for 200? Oh yes, I did. It's charted. Linen has been chosen. I am down to the thread choices, and in March at Nashville. I don't usually give you teasers this far in advance, but this is a big deal. It's 200. I will have 200 designs available. Now I know the distributor has discontinued some of them, just due to their inventory purposes. That's okay. I have not discontinued any of them. So I will literally in March have 200 charts available for sale to my needlework shops and through my Etsy shop. So there you have it. It's the official announcement. There is a sister to His Eye is on the Sparrow coming out in March. And should I tell you the title? Okay, I'll tell you the title. It's Consider the Lilies. And that's all I'm going to tell you for right now. It will be obvious that the two belong together. And I'm super excited, and when I start stitching it, I will show progress pictures on my Instagram. They're going to be a little bit abstract because I don't want to just outright show you the whole thing. I want to build excitement and mystery. But personally, my husband and I both agree that number 2 is better than number 1. Our personal opinion. You might disagree, but anyway, that's what's coming up way in the future. I kind of skipped over June, didn't I? So I have four things in the works for June. I've created, actually this will be for July. I've created an ornament set that Crazy Annie's Stitching will be making available during their Christmas in July event that I guess she does every year. This will be exclusive to her shop for July, and then it will be released by me next year for before Christmas. I don't know if I'll release it in July. I might. It might be later, because usually Christmas designs for me, the earliest I release them is maybe August. Typically September is closer. But it's a set of 5 ornaments that I'm actually going to attach to like a ribbon so I can have it as bunting. But they could also be made as ornaments. So I'm excited about that. Stitching's done. I just have to do the finishing. Tomorrow's Heirlooms has an heirloom sampler club, and it is my turn. And I finished stitching that design. If you saw my Instagram pictures from Mexico, you may have seen bits of that design in my lap. And that, I believe, is being mailed out in June. I think it's too late if you're not already signed up for that club, because I'm at the tail end. And again, that one will be eventually available to everybody, but it's going to be a good year from this summer. I've got 2 new releases next month that I think you're going to love. One is a Biscornu. Yes! I've always wanted to make a Biscornu pincushion, and they always looked scary to me. And I decided, in true fashion of how I approach life, well, if you're scared of it and you've never done it, you might as well just go all in and design one. So I have a Biscornu coming out, and those of you who are at the Tomorrow's Heirlooms retreat last summer saw me working on it. That's finally, it's taken a long time, I know, but it's finally coming out. And then I have a really fun idea, and I have a design coming out next month that if you all watch Pretty Southern, you know she's going to be super excited because she's been pestering me about this design for months. I put a teaser out on my Instagram and she's like, I have to have it. When's it coming out? When's it coming out? Well, Linda Jo, it's coming out in June. It's done. I've stitched it all. And should I tell you? It's a choose your own motto sampler. I'm trying to figure out how this is all going to work, but at this point, when you buy the chart, it's going to come with 2 different sayings. The one that I stitched, which I don't know is going to resonate with most of you, so I don't want to force you to stitch the one I stitched because, well, when you see it, you'll see why. And then it'll come with a more traditional motto. And then as a separate listing in my Etsy shop, I'm going to have a PDF that you can buy for a couple dollars, just basically to cover my fees and my time. But it will be like a 10-page PDF, and each page will be a different motto that you could then insert into. So once you buy the chart, you can go and you can, if you don't like the ones that came with it, then you can buy the listing that has all of the other mottos. Does that make sense? I think it'll make more sense once you see it. And I'm really excited about all of the different options that you're going to have. And I'll probably even make a more custom option where if you want to approach me because you have a specific quote that you want that's not already available, that we can work together. You pay me for my time to basically make your own motto sampler. The outside border area is the one part that's set in stone, not changeable, and I think you're going to love it. I love it. I can't wait to get it framed, and I'm going to hang it up in my kitchen, I think. Anyway, that's what's coming. And I feel like I've had so many other things that I wanted to talk to you about over the last couple months, that I don't know where my notes are. It'll all come up again eventually, and I'm going to try not to wait as long before my next video, because that's what happens, right? You have ideas, you want to say things, and then if you don't do it right away, you kind of lose track of it. So stick around if you want to watch a few just random videos. I don't know. I'll see what I can come up with. Videos that I've taken around here, my home, on vacation. But if you don't care, then this is where we say goodbye, and we'll see you next time. Happy stitching! I forgot to mention a little more. I forgot to talk about my Dallas trip other than the projects that I taught. Well, first of all, my husband's corporate office is in Dallas, and it's a long story of how that even came into being, but rewind to his childhood when he was just a little guy, like 7 years old. His family moved from upstate New York, from a 200-acre farm, to a little apartment in Dallas, Texas, and it was culture shock, and he didn't love it. So they were there for a couple years, and then they ended up in Oregon, out in the country again with lots of space, and that's what he needs and loves. And so for him to now be an adult and end up working for a company in Dallas, and he has to travel there once or twice a month. He's there for at least a couple days. He doesn't love it. He's not a big city guy, and the Dallas area has quite a large population compared to what we're used to out here. And, you know, it's corporate land, and some job stress happens, and so all of my picture of the area, oh, and I've been there twice. I was there once in the winter when I was like 16, and I remember we were in Fort Worth, and I remember walking along some little downtown area, I think next to the convention center. Haven't been back since I was 16, so I don't know, but cowboy boots and cowboy hats and murals, and I thought it was a cool city. And then I was there again in my early 20s in the heat of summer, and just thought I was gonna die because, well, that's not what I'm used to. It was hot and humid. So, you know, all of these, this is all that I've accumulated of the Dallas area. Lots of people, hot, humid, and maybe murals on the walls. So, and my husband not enjoying, and they steal my husband from me once a month or twice a month. So I was somewhat reluctant to go, I have to confess, but you know, flying in, I guess it was the perfect time of year. That's what the ladies told me. The weather was perfect. There were wildflowers blooming everywhere. It was very green because it's been raining a lot, but the sun was out. And I flew into Dallas Love, and basically had to drive all the way across to the west side, from the east side of the Metroplex to the west side, because as it so happened, my husband was there on business last week as well, and so I flew in on Thursday and he flew out on Friday. So for one night we met up, and I stayed at his hotel by the plant with him, and we went and had dinner with some of his coworkers, which also used to be in Portland. So they're people that I either knew back in the day or knew of at least. So we had dinner and spent like 12 hours together, and then he left, came back home, got the kids from my mom's house, and I stayed on for my trip. But the people were so warm and relaxed, and I think of big cities as uptight, but I guess in Texas, you know, when your state has been built on the backs of farmers and ranchers, there's just kind of this relaxed vibe that I didn't expect, at least among the people I interacted with. And it felt more like home than I expected it to. Now, I always struggle when I'm in a strange city that I'm not familiar with that's flat, because I'm so used to living and driving through hills and valleys and tall trees, and there's always visually some kind of a landmark of, I don't find my way around by the compass, north, south, east, west. I can kind of tell which direction I'm going based on the time of day and where the sun is, if the sun is out. But here in the Pacific Northwest, it's always cloudy and gray, 9 months out of the year, raining. And so I used tall trees and hills and that sort of thing to help me navigate. I know, my husband shakes his head at me. So I don't know where I was going with that. It was much more pleasant driving around Dallas than I thought it was. It was hard for me to get a perspective of what the area really looks like because it was flat. Maybe that's where I was going. I'm going to probably watch this back and go, oh, well, you were going to say that. Why didn't you say that? Anyway, I spent a good portion, Friday morning I got to tour the plant where my husband works, or the corporate office, I should say. They also do a lot of production there, so I got to see the production aspect, which was cool. And then I spent the afternoon with a lovely lady who has been helping to coordinate this workshop with me. And we went to an antique mall, and we had lunch at a tea room, and we had a really good dinner, and we just talked and found so many things in common with each other that were surprising. And that was a lot of fun. And then Saturday, I got to meet another group of stitchers that are now added to my cross stitch family, and it was wonderful. I had such a great time. Everybody was so warm and welcoming, and please invite me back. I'll come back in a heartbeat. And now I have a much better perspective and view of Dallas and Texas, and you have made what hasn't had the greatest connotations in my mind. That whole area now is an area that I'd love to go back and see again. So I was going to go to church there on Sunday morning and have lunch with an old friend from high school that's lived. I haven't seen her since the late 80s, early 90s, and discovered she lived in the area. But it didn't work out for us to meet up, so I had an entire day to myself, which is good because I picked up this cold. So I sat in my hotel room and watched Ancient Aliens and American Pickers and stitched and went for a little walk, and it was kind of a forced little vacation. So I now really like Dallas, and hopefully we'll be back again sometime. I really am enjoying the teaching aspect of what I do. It's still strange to me that people invite me to come and want me to be the person that's talking to their group, but I'm really enjoying it and making friends all over the country, and hopefully at some point we'll get to meet you. I got to meet a few FlossTubers, and I didn't get to write down their FlossTube names before I left, so I'm going to try to hunt them down. So I'm not going to try to, I'm not going to try to say who they are right now in this video because I'm not exactly sure. I found one of them, Stitch and Be Well, Mrs. Menzel, but there's a couple others that I still need to find. And so that was fun. We were able to speak the FlossTube language with each other. Anyway, if you don't have a stitching group, you really should get online. Do some searching. See if there's a sampler guild or any kind of stitching club in your area, because finding those people that speak your language, I mean, we're all here on FlossTube because we love cross-stitching, right? This is what brings us together here. And imagine not having to just sit at home and watch FlossTube anymore, but actually having people in, sitting around in a room. Now, granted, you don't typically get a lot of stitching done when you're in a group, but I find it inspiring just to be in a room of other stitchers and we speak the same language, and then when I get back on my own, I find that I'm stitching faster and I'm more excited about my stitching because I've just been, it's like fuel. It's fuel for my cross-stitching fire. So thank you, ladies of the Tudor Rose Sampler Guild. Those of you that were there and spent the day with me, Thank you for being patient with me and friendly and just giving me your time. It was fantastic, and maybe we'll see you again sometime. There goes another flurry of petals. Maybe I'll video that for you. I really should. So I've just remembered yet another thing that I forgot to tell you. So I'm not even going to bother with my tripod this time. I keep running back outside and trying to make it look like it's all seamless, like when I edit it together, but you know what? It is what it is. I'm a human being. So the thing I forgot to tell you is that I took a trunk show with me to Dallas, and I left it in the capable hands of the Stitch Niche in Arlington, which is kind of smack dab between Dallas and Fort Worth, and they're going to keep my trunk show for a little while. So if you are, if you live in the area, the Metroplex area, if you're traveling there, if you're going to be around, you really should stop by Stitch Niche. Give them a hello, visit their great little shop, and also see my trunk show. I think it'll be there for probably a month. I don't know. We didn't really set a time frame. I just begged them to take it from me after I was done with the workshop, because I thought that it would be nice to kind of double up on the travel time. So I hate shipping my models. If I'm going to ship them, I'd like them to be there for a while. So they said, yes, please. And I'm going to turn the camera around so you can see the cherry blossom shower that's happening. So many of the blossoms have already blown out of the tree today that maybe there's not as many coming down. Oh, there they are. There have been a few huge bursts of cherry blossoms flying through the air that have just been spectacular. They made me want to run down and like stand under the tree and just get showered on. Okay. I guess that's it. One more gust of wind. Maybe we'll catch something. Nope. That wind, the wind is apparently going to stay down in the woods and not come up into the yard. So that's all. Go visit Stitch Niche. Go say hi to my models for me. Bye.
This is what happens when you burn branches that still are what we forestry people call green. Still a lot of moisture in the leaves, the needles I should say, not the leaves. And so it looks like a really impressive smoke column, but a lot of that is actually steam from all of the liquids that are being released in the branches as they're burning. The kids thought it was really cool because usually we don't burn stuff until it's nice and dry. So I'm taking a little video. This is one of the trees that we felled this winter to open up our view, and we're also getting rid of a bunch of cardboard in the process because it helps keep the fire going. Normally we recycle our cardboard, but in a situation like this it's nice to have a stash of dry boxes to keep the heat going, to keep the green branches burning. So we've been stockpiling Amazon boxes for a few months now, and it's paying off. The rest of the tree got chopped up for firewood and will help keep our family warm next winter.
My favorite, you had me at pumpkin size.
You like that one?
Yeah, that one.
I love seeing all of your stitching bags at your feet. Here's some well-equipped stitchers, ready for any emergency. Just whip out that stitching bag and yep. Woolen pancakes.
I got a pin in my mouth.
Oh, I was just getting your hands. You're okay. I put my pins in my mouth too. I know I'm not supposed to. I hold my needle between my teeth.
Yeah.
It's a horrible habit that hopefully will never wind me up in the emergency room. Hello, ma'am. How'd you hurt yourself? Well, I was sewing.
Yeah, just draw my life.
So Vicky has hers.
Do I have too much?
No, I mean, it's your preference, really. So I would lay your linen over and kind of pull it around with your hands, and if you like how it looks, then you're done. If you still want it puffier, then cut some more circles. I love that, y'all. You know where you're in Texas if
Yeah, here the
y'all. I actually say y'all quite a lot.